It's time once again for more FoodSpace. All things food and drink, restaurants, travel, recipes, and cooking tips. There's something for everyone. Taste, sip, learn, and laugh along with us. And now it's time to get into his space, FoodSpace. Here's your host, Chef Michael Glatz.
Welcome to FoodSpace. Always a pleasure to have you in my space. And today we're doing one of my favorite episodes we do every now and then, Pop-Up Health with Nancy Heinrich. Nancy, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Chef, always a pleasure.
Wellness coach, author, growinghealthykids.org, right? All these wonderful things. She's my yin to my yang because, you know, I don't always eat healthy, right? But Nancy does. So this is really great because we're all big kids at heart. And so growing healthy kids is really, it starts with the children, but we can't teach our children unless we know what we're talking about first, right?
We're the ultimate teachers, but in my world, sometimes the kids are the teachers.
Oh, absolutely. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Excellent. So what do we have here today, Nancy? It's kind of fall season, and while we're in Florida and it's still kind of nice and warm and all that, it is fall season in many parts of the world, and so you've got some special treats on the table for us here today.
Right. Well, you know, we were talking about this show, and I said, let's think we got pumpkins going on.
Right.
You got pumpkins all in all the stores, and winter squash. So I thought, let's talk about pumpkin, acorn squash, and butternut squash.
Great.
Because these are some of the most nutrient-dense foods that people can eat, and not just this time of year, year-round.
Right, sure. And delicious, and I think of kabocha squash also. Right. And delicious and fun and very versatile because they can work as sweets and savories, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much variety, so many things you can do. So I prepared a couple of things in the Growing Healthy Kids test kitchen last night, and the two things I prepared are both vegan, which means there's nothing from an animal, which is kind of unusual because people say, well, you made pumpkin bread, you put eggs in that, right? But there's a secret ingredient. You can make flax eggs using ground flax, and you mix it with water. You let it sit for a few minutes, and it's a fabulous egg substitute.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So it works. It works.
Can
with
I
a lot
eat
of
while you
potatoes.
talk?
Absolutely.
Because I'm looking at this pumpkin bread and I'm thinking,
yeah.
And
I want to know what you think.
I see some walnuts in here.
Yep. I used.
Oh my goodness, Nancy.
Simple recipe. There's a website that I go to for inspiration sometimes in creating things. So the pumpkin bread has a little bit of it has just a little bit of banana that because that can act as a binder, and then the flax eggs also can bind it up.
Isn't that one of the challenges when you're removing things like butter and cream and eggs is consistency, right? Texture,
right.
How do you bind and hold things together? Right. How do you give it that nice mouthfeel? Right,
and that's where you just have to play in the kitchen because you don't know what's going to work. But pumpkin, like applesauce, can substitute for oils in a lot of baked goods. Oh, like if you're making any kind of muffins, you can substitute those too. If you want to reduce the fat, and so you can substitute the oil for applesauce or fresh pureed pumpkin. Or what I used this was a canned organic pumpkin. And I looked at the label.
Yep.
The only ingredient was
pumpkin.
100% pumpkin puree.
And it's real easy to do at home if you don't want to use the canned product, or you have some great squashes or pumpkins in your local market, farmer's market, or maybe even in your own garden. Just cut the squash in half, right? Pull the seeds out, save those seeds because rinse them off. They're delicious roasted. And then I take and I rub the cut side of the squash with a little olive oil, salt and pepper. I put them cut side down and roast them in the oven until they get soft.
Do you put any water in the pan? Just kind of steam it up?
I do, a little bit of water, right? Because that helps to steam it, and then it caramelizes a little bit, which... So now you've got this moist squash, pumpkin, whatever, and it's got wonderful flavor from the caramelization of the sugar, so that little bit of roasting, and usually then the skin just peels off nicely. Right? And then you can puree it or mash it or go from there.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah. So, pumpkin is, and pumpkin is so good for you. And all these foods are really high in vitamin A. So they're really good for your eye health. Now, of the three, the butternut squash is the highest in vitamin A.
Okay.
But it is really good. It's it may have properties to help prevent cataracts and macular degeneration.
So I can eat this delicious pumpkin bread and be doing myself good things at the same
your
time.
Eyes are happy.
So is my tummy.
And with the vitamin A, your skin is happy, and these are also foods that are very high in potassium.
Okay.
And then potassium is one thing that we really need for our heart health. And most people don't get anywhere near enough potassium. So the dark orange vegetables and fruits are extremely good sources.
Don't some people that have trouble with high blood pressure actually take potassium pills?
Right,
Why do that when you can eat these wonderful vegetables, right?
Right. It's just, like you said, it's so easy, like a butternut squash. If people could just learn, and that's one thing I teach kids how to do, is how to cut a butternut squash. And I didn't think we'd have enough room. I didn't know if Wayne would, be okay with peels flying all over the studio here at Planet Vero. So I didn't bring knives and cutting boards to do that. But basically, you cut off the two ends, right? And then you take your potato peeler and
peel it down.
And just peel the skin down. Right. And then some people will cut the top part off. Can you grab that butternut squash?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the bulb part is the bottom, which is in your right hand there. Yeah.
Yep.
So some people would cut it off and then work with the two pieces.
Right. Interesting.
I kind of do just cut it in half and do the whole thing.
And I do treat it a little differently. I slice it just in half, scoop the little seed pocket out, and then roast those two halves. And depending on the squash, the variety, the time of year, and so on, and you should always wash all your produce really, really well anyways. I make sure I wash the skins really well, because sometimes the skins are really edible. Once in a while, they're a little on the tough side, but most of the time, particularly roasting them, the skins are absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
right?
I especially with acorn squash, I'll eat them.
Yeah. Great.
And talking about the skins, these are foods that if you can buy them organically grown, which means they're grown without any chemicals that come from a laboratory, that's really the preferred method.
Right. Because
the skins, as you know, are pretty thin on those.
Right.
So the chemicals get soaked up through and they get into the
into the fruit itself,
right. And you said fruit. That's interesting because because they have seeds.
Why?
No, but a lot of people think it's a vegetable, but they are fruits.
Oh, I said fruit, just sort of. I wasn't really even thinking, but they are fruits.
They
Interesting.
are fruits, right?
Great. Interesting.
Right.
Tell us about the color orange, because that's a healthy color, isn't it?
Right. Well, that's the beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A, which is why it's good for your skin and for your eyes.
Okay.
So,
my mother used to get me to eat carrots when I was a kid. She'd say they're good for your eyes, and she'd say, "You ever see a bunny rabbit wearing glasses?"
Mom knows best.
Right, Mom knows best.
Yeah. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm smelling curry in the studio.
Okay.
A wonderful, rich, warm smell of curry.
Right.
Why is that happening?
So this is the I made a curried butternut squash soup with light coconut milk.
Okay.
It's seasoned with cinnamon and curry powder.
Interesting.
And a couple of other ingredients. It has a little bit of maple syrup in there.
And coconut milk, but it's not really milk. I wish we'd come up with a different word, right?
Yeah.
We say almond milk, coconut milk, and that's a little misleading.
Yeah.
Because when I hear the word milk, I think dairy right away.
Does milk mean it came from a cow?
Right. Yeah. And I guess the word can be interchangeable, but...
Well, you better work on that.
I don't know. I'm confused. But I'm going to have some of this soup and end my confusion.
Try it. Yeah, please try it.
And tell me about the seeds. There's some... Are these the seeds that you roasted?
Those are the pumpkin seeds. This time I didn't roast them. And I brought two kinds. You can buy the raw pumpkin seeds, which I used. It's an essential ingredient in my food pantry. And I also brought the roasted and salted pumpkin seeds.
I never thought of balancing curry with a little cinnamon. Oh, wonderful. And curry can be overdone. You can use, it's one of those spices you can use too much of. Right. My goodness, you have a beautiful balance there of curry, a little bit of that cinnamon, the warmth through heat, the velvety squash. It's just a really wonderful balance. So delicious. And
Yeah.
of course, I'm not vegan and I love everything. And when I taste food like this, that's completely vegan, I don't know why I'm so amazed, but I am. It's so delicious and feels so great in my mouth.
And the ultimate test for me with good food, because in my family, some people in my family have what's called a sensitive stomach.
Okay.
Which I think, we talk about gut health now these days, and a lot of processed food is very difficult to digest.
Right.
But when you go, an hour or two after a meal, if your stomach feels really happy and you don't have a stomach ache,
then you had some good food.
You had some good food.
Yeah.
And that's the way food should be. That's every day is like that for me, because I don't eat foods that I found could be offensive, especially white flour. Like the flour that's in the pumpkin bread is a little bit of almond meal flour, and then I also used one of my favorite go-tos is Bob's Red Mill gluten-free baking mix.
Okay.
It's a blend of several different things. And if I didn't have that in my food pantry last night, I was going to use quinoa flour, which is extremely digestible. It's very nutty. It's good to use in baked goods.
And some of these different flours that we're using now to reduce our gluten intake actually have more flavor, more character than traditional flour.
Right.
Right.
They're good for you. And, you want to eat a variety of foods. So, one thing I did that was different last night, I have one of those fun baking trays for, instead of a muffin making muffins, it just makes the top of the muffin.
Oh, the best part.
Right. So you get more of the crust. So because I added all the walnuts, I had a little extra batter left. And so I made one muffin with the pumpkin, so it has a lot of crust. It has more crunch to it.
Half cookie, half soft cookie, half muffin top.
Exactly. So I tested the other one of these last night, and I went to bed really happy last night.
There's a good point too. A lot of people tell me, well, I can't snack late at night before I go to bed. I don't sleep well. And choose your snack wisely. Right. If you're eating really good whole food like this, just as you say, it's not going to irritate your tummy several hours after you eat it. Probably a little good for you too, if you're having that little late night snack of something very healthy before you try to retire for the night. Yeah,
you want to, you really need 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours or so after dinner until you really go to bed, because you don't want to go to bed on a full stomach for a couple of reasons. But one is because of a lot of things that we're finding out about is, if you eat a big meal right before dinner, that impacts your brain health. And it really may have a big factor in the development or progression of Alzheimer's disease, because your brain does not have an opportunity to just flush everything out. And that's what sleep time is for our brains.
Interesting.
It's like when you just, hit the flush cycle on your brain. And so if you've got all these nutrients coming in, your whole body's having to deal with, now I got, So no, just keep it simple. Just a little bit complex carbohydrates, which is what the pumpkin bread is. That would be a great little, have a little piece of that before bed with a little glass of almond milk.
Excellent.
And it would really
little schnooter of port on the side, maybe a small one.
Yeah. But see, the almond milk contains calcium. Almonds are one of the non-dairy sources of calcium.
Interesting. Good to know.
Calcium relaxes you. So having a little something with almonds or almond milk, just munching on a few almonds before bed would help.
Great. Nancy, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us the ways folks can find more out about you. GrowingHealthyKids.org.
GrowingHealthyKids.org.
Facebook.
Yep, Facebook.
Growing Healthy Kids.
Growing Healthy Kids.
At Woman Health on Twitter.
That's right.
Right. The same on Instagram. It's hard to keep all these things
I know.
straight.
I think Instagram, it's Nancy Heinrich.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show as always.
Fun.
It's been a pleasure tasting all this good winter squash and pumpkin dishes. Thanks for watching us on FoodSpace. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, FoodSpace with Chef Michael on YouTube, also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you, Nancy, for some pop-up health. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Mike.